For those of you that are joining us, our next panel is focused on competition and who will win the AI race. I have some thoughts about this myself, but I'll save them for the Speaker's Corner. Please welcome our next panel. It's moderated by the Head of Cloud and Artificial Intelligence at Bitkom, Lukas Klingholz. And his panel, please come on up. Welcome.
Yeah, a warm welcome from my side to this panel with the title, Who Wins the AI Race? I have three wonderful panelists with me, and I'll start with Corinna Visser. Corinna Visser has been a business journalist and a tech journalist for years, since the late 1990s, and currently she's reporting on digital policy in the European context at Table.Media. So my first question to you, Corinna, is, you're covering German and European politics and business developments in detail as a journalist. So what is your perspective? Where do businesses stand in Germany and Europe when it comes to AI? And what is the role of regulation like the AI Act?
I think, as far as I can see, many companies are in a wait-and-see mode, and they're a little creep about what's going to come. And we're relatively good at research, but we're not so good in bringing this research into competitive products. And this is also the case in AI, because the research that we're doing in Europe and in Germany is quite good. US and China is leading, but UK and Germany are in third and fourth place. We have some good examples. For example, the AI of Stable Diffusion is one of the image generators that is in the world that is very much recognized. And also, for example, Aleph Alpha, which is a startup that is creating a very recognized large language model. And what I find interesting, this large language model is to integrate source verification and explainability, which is, as I think, very important to build trust in AI in this circumstance. And Bitkom just has made a survey asking companies what they think will be the one important competitive technology in the near future, and more than 70% of the companies said that that's going to be artificial intelligence, but only 15% are already using it. So we have to deal with this issue, and like the discussion on ChatGPT brought large language models to the public discussion. All the companies are now aware that there's something coming to them, so that they have to deal with it. And regulation, I think, plays an important role, because it brings some trust that companies are in a secure environment when they're dealing with AI.
Thank you, Corinna, for your insights. We're just going to the second panelist. I'm happy to introduce James McLaughlin. He's a British diplomat and currently the regional director of the UK's Science and Innovation Network for Europe, Turkey and Israel. So you have a lot of parts of Europe and the world to cover. So my question to you is, what is your perspective of the status quo of the European ecosystem, the UK ecosystem, when it comes to AI? Where do startups stand, and what is the status of cooperation between companies from the EU and the UK?
Well, thank you, Lucas, and really delighted to be here today at your conference, and thank you for inviting us to this panel. So I think from a UK government perspective, really keen that we get the framing right on these issues, really keen to strike that tone of collaboration, how we respond to the opportunities and challenges posed by AI. I think is going to be really key. So really about how countries can work together, how we can build the right networks. But I think to answer your questions, I think there's lots of areas where we're already working together closely, including on areas like research. UK putting a lot of money into this. We've recently established a task force to look at cutting-edge research into generative AI. So I think that's a good example. On the safety side of this, so looking at some of the emerging risks that stem from generative AI, again, needs to be a global effort. Our Prime Minister recently announced that we'll be holding a summit in the autumn focused on these issues and how we can respond to both the opportunities and some of the safety issues that arise from these emerging technologies. I think also lots happening in the multilateral space, so both in the UN, efforts that arise from the G7 process, including under Germany's recent efforts. So I think there's lots that we can build on there. And obviously, across Europe, our economies are aligned, intertwined, but also we share the same values. So I think that really creates a firm bedrock for cooperation. And then just finally, in terms of the UK's own relationship with Germany, I think there's real scope to build on the already strong cooperation. We've got separate dialogues with German system on digital and tech issues, and also on the science and investment and innovation side, a lot happening there. So I think really feeling optimistic about the level of cooperation going forwards.
So thanks a lot for the insights. I think we will go a lot more into the details when it comes to international cooperation and also foreign policy implications of AI. So I'm very happy to introduce my third panelist, who is Perry Klebahn. Perry is a co-founding member of Standford's School Faculty for Design and Entrepreneurship, and he's an adjunct professor and director of executive education at the Standford School. So my question to you is, given your perspective from the US, what is your view on the US ecosystem? USA are leading when it comes to offering AI solutions, US-based companies. What is your view on the ecosystem in the US? And what is your view from the US to looking on the European ecosystem?
Thank you. So thanks for having me. First of all, Lucas, thanks for putting it together. And the panel, I think it's great. You get a chance to hear very different perspectives. So from my work at Stanford, I'm a professor at Stanford, and one of the things I do amongst other duties is run the accelerator for the engineering school called Launchpad. In that curriculum in particular, we've been working very hard to bring AI into the hands of these entrepreneurs, but with a particular focus at the very, very early stages for these startups, teaching the founders, student founders, to use AI as an augmentation tool, if you will. I was talking to Corinna earlier, as an option engine, not an answer engine. So generating possibilities, I wrote a book about this called Idea Flow, but the idea of generating a lot more ideas early on, that's highly correlated with success in startups. And I think if there's something that, hearing some of the enterprise and some of the issues, I don't want to discount the issues. I enjoyed the ethics talk. It's not without consequences. The place that I think is worthy of consideration for a large organization, and certainly if your kids are in school, is getting AI in the hands of your employees and teaching them how to use it as an inquiry device, a device to ask questions, a device to generate options. I think that's terrific. And I think we were talking earlier, do you wait for regulation or not? And I think my point is, maybe I'm going to avoid that conversation because I'm an academic. Instead, I'd say, wow, it's amazing to get people trained on these tools. Get your employees ready for the coming changes that they'll be facing. Get them to think about some of the questions, Corinna, I know you've written a lot about early on.
Thanks a lot for the insights. I think in the first round of questions, we got some feelings how AI is used and discussed within the EU, within UK, and within the US. So going to the next layer of questions when it comes to international cooperation, you already touched it a little bit, James, in your first statement. What is your view, Corinna, when it comes to international cooperation? So we have the EU starting about how to safeguards for AI, regulating AI, we have UK, and when you have the US. So what is your view? How are these discussions interlinked, and how can we build a framework which works for enterprises who want to operate in all the markets with as less friction as possible?
Yeah, we are in the situation that AI developers kind of are begging for regulation, which is a little astonishing and and maybe not always honorable. But still, there is, I think that the foundation of our democracies are in danger at this point. So we really need to make rules to defend our democracies, but against deepfakes, against disinformation. But we will not be, the bad guys won't play after the rules. So we also have to develop AI defending us against those that want to destroy our democracies. So we have the AI Act of the European Union, which is very much discussed, and as I see it, many people are talking about something they really don't know, and the AI Act is still not final. This is work in progress, and so it is still time to give input to the legislators to make this right. As you mentioned, we have the Hiroshima process of the G7. We have the EU-US TTC process where they want to have an alignment, a transatlantic alignment on AI. And I think putting standards is the most important thing, and giving guardrails so people know in which way they can go and in which way they don't.
Maybe one just very short follow-up question. Where do you see room for consensus, and where do you see room for disagreement? And who is shaping the discussion? Are the Europeans leading, or the EU with their AI Act being already very mature?
The EU is leading because they are the first ones that are bringing such a comprehensive legislation. The US has a bill of rights of AI, but this is very short, only five points, and it's like security, accuracy, and also non-discrimination. And these are the points I think they're widely agreed that this should be the case when applying AI.
Thank you. So, James, what is your perspective from the UK, taking part in those discussions, for example, G7? What is your view? How do you see the EU regulation? What are also the foreign policy implications you see in this context?
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. I mean, I think first of all, in terms of the sort of foreign affairs implications, and I think really struck just how much many governments, including my own, how they're putting science and technology at the sort of center of their national effort, so recognizing how important it is for both our economies, but also for our sort of national security. So we've taken several steps recently ourselves, including forming a new government department focused on science, innovation, and technology issues. So trying to make sure that we've got sound direction, coherence across the full set of policy issues. We've also launched recently an international technology strategy, setting out how we want to work internationally on these issues, which again is sort of partly focused on the sort of values and principles which we think should govern use of these technologies going forward. So making sure that the use of these technologies is both transparent and open, but also looking at issues around security and making sure we've got the right levels of resilience, so we can shape, I guess, global governance in an effective way. And I think that's how the UK can continue to work effectively with both the EU, but I think also the US. So I think democracies working together on these issues for us, I think, is really important.
Thank you, James. Perry, you have the view from the US. So the US is leading in providing those technologies, or US companies are. What is your perspective on those questions? And also another question I would like to have you to answer is, how is the AI Act or AI regulatory frameworks from you discussed in the US? Is it even discussed? Is it even noticed? So what is your perspective from across the ocean?
Yeah, I think Corinna and I talked about this before. I think you're absolutely right about things. A lot of discussion about transparency, a lot of discussion about responsibility. Accuracy, I think there's emerging use cases where accuracy isn't as important. That's what I'd say. There are areas where I would very much want it to be there, but there's areas where there's a case for it not to be. Maybe I'm not a policymaker, but Lucas is backing up and saying, what I've seen at Stanford, I've been there for close to 15 years, is these emergent technologies are bottoms up, and it's hard to approach them tops down. So I acknowledge the work you're doing is very, very difficult to figure out a policy early on that's not going to be outdated in months, in this case, or at least a few years. We talked about this earlier. How do you create a resilient system that's going to keep inquiring and asking questions about use cases, asking questions about rights, for consumers, for example. What I think is that we're in a really complex adaptive system, and maybe if I was leading a big company and thinking about doing that, I'd be thinking about a huge disruption is coming, and how do I equip myself and ask the right questions to sort of navigate through this? And I think you can't sort of establish, or I would find it highly unlikely we could establish a set of rules now that we would feel strong about a decade from now. I think it doesn't stop us from doing that. I think we should absolutely do it and have that conversation. And I agree, the American attitude is let's figure it out later, but things like social media didn't quite work out the way we intended, did it? So there's unintended consequences to all these technologies, and I think those will come out. Perhaps we could learn how to adapt as we go and think about rules as we go. They perhaps might be different for different industries.
Thanks a lot, Perry. So the next layer of questions would be the really international context, like the global perspective, and also keeping in mind what the name of the panel is, Global AI Race. So what is your perspective on the global scale? Who is winning the AI race? What does it even mean, AI race? And what are the questions of cooperation when it comes to not just the EU and the US and the EU and the UK? So what are your perspectives on that, Corinna?
Well, because I'm not a founder. I asked a founder who's going to win the AI race. It was Jonas Androulis, and everybody is listening very, very closely what he's saying. And he says that it is naive to think that we can win this AI race without investing the amounts of money that the Americans are investing. So we have a lack of money, and we have to be more ambitious in that space, and making the rules for investment in Europe more attractive than they are. And the second point is applying it. If the German, for example, the German government would use AI to digitize the government, it would help. It would help a lot. And I think regulation is very important. Even the Chinese are going to regulate AI, but they are saying AI has to play about their rules, their socialist view on this. So we should have our own rules. And regulation is very important, I think. But on the other side, as you mentioned, we need really to educate the people, to bring them to use it, and to develop the skills we need. Otherwise, all the regulation will not lead us to anything, but we need to use the technology. And So we will find out which is the outcome that we are looking for and what we don't want to have.
Corinna, thanks a lot for your insights. So we have, James, you have a lot of experience from foreign service, and I think you can very good understand the implications of those technologies to foreign policy implications, not just on countries which are like-minded, as you said, or democracies. What is your perspective in the really international context, looking on the global scale on AI? And what do you think? Who will win the AI race, and what does the West or Western democracies need to do to keep ahead?
Thank you, and maybe just building a little bit on what Corinna just said. I mean, I think there are lots of things that I guess a variety of governments are doing to stay ahead, steps they are taking, whether that's regulation, whether that's on ensuring we've got the right skills, we've got the right workforce, obviously ensuring appropriate levels of research and development, the right level of public investment, that sort of investment in research, I think, as well, is really crucial. So, but I think from our perspective, I think what governments really need to be doing is, firstly, looking at areas for collaboration. I think this is a global issue, and I think how we develop these technologies can play a key role in tackling some of the really important global challenges, whether that's climate change or better solutions for health. So, I think governments need to move at pace on these issues, very complex, fast-moving issues. I guess government is not traditionally good often at moving at pace, but I think this is one example of where we need to, because of the very rapid pace of technological change. I think I've highlighted a few steps that the UK government has already taken. I think lots of other examples of where countries are also taking similar steps. So, I think that's the way that we would sort of approach the question, not in terms of who's going to win a race, but I think we need to sort of be running that race together and getting the right level of global cooperation.
Thank you. So we're going to the US perspective now, the perspective from the US. Perry, what is your perspective? Foreign policy implications, who will win the AI race, what do the players need to do from both industry and politics?
Yeah, well, maybe, so I feel like it's my first chance to be a diplomat up here speaking for the US, but maybe backing up to a more general statement, in a race, I think the important thing is starting. It's 100% correlation. You don't win the race if you didn't start. And I think if I talk to executives, sometimes I meet executives that their policy for AI is no employees are going to use AI, right? Mm-hmm. And then other ones have no rules, which we've talked about. That could be more problematic. But I would think about it like, what are you doing to start? Meaning getting some policies in place and discussing them is a good idea, and realizing they're emergent and going to change. I think the same thing, we're seeing a fraction of the power of these tools, and over the next 2 decades, the computing power is going to be enormous, right? So the large language model really brought up all this for us because it looks and sounds so real. But the actual problem-solving capacity is going to get exponentially stronger. So I think the optimist in me says this is a great chance to have all these discussions. And Corinna, keep asking the questions you ask, because those answers will be emergent, is my take. And I think the folks that sit any of this out, how many people are using ChatGPT or AI on a daily basis? Good. I would counsel all of you use it on a daily basis. It's training. It's as if the word processor just came out and you're deciding not to use it. I'm old enough, I remember the first time I hit print and it was like magic, right? I think that's the kind of disruption you're in the middle of, and think about you've got to get ready for it. I had the pleasure, I worked for I worked for a company, Patagonia. Do you guys know Patagonia clothing? So I was CEO there for a number of years, and the founder, Yvonne, always said, innovating is like being on an expedition. It's not certain. You can't plan your way through it. And I think that's very much what we're into is, are you going to get equipped and learn about these tools, ask the kind of questions, read columns like Corinna writes about this, and get into this debate. I think that's the important thing.
Thank you, Perry. You also already touched the last question I have, very short answers, last round of questions. Where will you stand in the next 5, 10, 20 years? How will AI change the world, Corinna?
It is often said that the big tech of the US took over the consumer internet, and I think the biggest opportunities for European companies is in the industrial internet, and that the AI applications in industry might be the field where we can win the race. And still, we need more money in it and people using it.
Thank you, Corinna. I think you really touched the point, what's in for Europe to really develop the B2B industries and to bring them into the AI age. James, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think huge potential, and I think so many areas where this is going to change the way we work, how we operate, both as individuals, but also as governments, as researchers, as investors. So, yeah, I think the sort of personally really excited about the sort of the potential that's out there. I mean, I think still some challenges that need to be addressed around, establishing the sort of right guardrails, safety measures. But yeah, I think so many areas where this is going to be transformative and I think provide solutions to sort of some of the big societal challenges, whether that's climate change or better solutions to health.
Perry,
Yeah.
last words from you.
Yeah, I think we'll see dramatic. I mean, I'm lucky I see all these startups and seeing what's coming, and I saw some of the demos in the other rooms. But I think we'll see dramatic product and service implications that are terrific, and we'll see some missteps that I think will inform what my colleagues are nobly trying to figure out is what should the boundaries and rules be.
So, last words for me. Thanks a lot for your insights.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your attention, and happy to listen to the next panel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.